Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Windfall. So, whoever put this movie together was brilliant about giving you absolutely nothing and watching a film that doesn't really do much. But it's an hour and 30 minutes for what I don't know why. But maybe it might have just been a couple of friends that all just wanted to do a movie, wanted to have fun with it, and really that's where it all went. And bizarrely, Netflix was like, oh, heck yeah, let's have Windfall in our catalog of movies. Man, every single time I always go on and question the effort of Netflix giving an F. And really it comes down to, like, Netflix will just chuck out anything. But, like, really that's not to besmirch this film, it's just to besmirch Netflix that really, like, that's the reason why nobody really goes on to heavily Netflix. People would eventually go on and watch a show or two, but eventually they would go on to find other apps that are just to be much more substantial than Netflix at some point in time. But anyways, Windfall, what is this movie about? Well, it's about three people who stand around for a bulk of this film, just kind of waiting for some payout to be done. So the teeing up of this film, and even the teeing up, even describing it, even saying any part of it feels like a spoiler upon this movie, because there's nothing really going on. So we of course have Jason Segel, who is just to be called nobody in this film, because nobody really has a name in this movie. And I meant, like, none of the cast have a name in this film. And we have Jesse Plemons, who is to be just called the CEO. Lily Collins is just to be called the wife. And Omar Leyva is to be called the gardener, or gardener. Yeah, just the real effort that is just sprinkled upon this film. So I appreciate the effort of this film. Like, really, even though I'm kind of, like, making fun of it, and I'm just like, why does this exist? Like, at least, like, bits and pieces got me intrigued to want to watch the whole hour and 30 minutes. And so bravo for that. Like, there's some parts of this movie where I'm just kind of like, okay, like, this seems like something at least technically worth an hour and 30. Compared to some other movies where I'm just like, I get past, like, the first half an hour, and I'm just like, man, I'm gonna, like, I just want to jump off. I just don't really care. But really, when looking at it, like, this movie to me just feels like Shattered, like a very tinier, no-budget film variation of Shattered, but Shattered nonetheless. If you guys have not seen Shattered yet, go out of your way to check that out. Go into my review, you'll probably find a way for you to be able to see Shattered, and you'll probably enjoy that movie a lot more, and it's very similar to this. But yeah, if you went on and watched this film and you enjoyed it, then, like, I can't blame you, but there's also a scene in this movie I'm like, I would rather go on and watch The Three Amigos right now. I would rather go on and watch that movie. I would have fun. So thank Windfall for eventually wanting me to have interest in The Three Amigos, because Three Amigos is really fun. So, and I've seen it once before, or a while ago, but it is what it is. So, teeing it up, what is this movie about? So, the basic concept of this movie is Jason Segel, who is called nobody in this film, is to break into a rich fat cat CEO and is CEO's house to go on and try to pick through this guy's house, finding some measly money. All of a sudden, the CEO and his wife is to come to their home because they're vacationing, and all of a sudden, nobody is to go on and want more money. It's to desperately go on and be like, well, like, the money that I got was just not nearly enough. Like, I need to see, like, how much, like, in a max capacity, how much money can I really get? So, because supposedly this CEO is worth billions, and so nobody's going on and saying, like, well, like I really want a decent payout, like $3 million. And the CEO just kind of laughs at him and is like, are you serious? Like, yeah, like, just make a crazy amount, just any weird, bizarre amount that would throw so many red flags, it would be absurd. So, but then, like, the rest of the movie is to go on and be this waiting game, this this getting to know one another kind of thing, where we kind of get to know who the other, or who all the people really are, and then this movie kind of wraps itself up, and we'll get to that in spoilers. So there's not much to really say about this film because it's not much of a movie, in all honesty. But bravo to the people who created this film. Bravo to the people who did this film, because they outsmarted a number of people. They gave you a movie that's not a movie, but, like, they are just geniuses. And, like, they paid out, and they probably, like, spent no money upon this film, and if they did, that was a massive mistake. And, like, there's something that I'm just like, God, these people are clever, but not clever enough to put out a good film that would justify as recently a film that would just, like, yeah, it was like, I waited freaking, like, so long for people to just wait around. Like, why? Anyways, but the payout at the end. Sure. So let's go into that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about this movie. So let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time I'm going to spoil this movie. So even cryptic like sense, I kind of gave this movie away just because it's there's nothing. Bravo, but nothing. The cleverness of just, like, man, what a movie. To just put out. The genius who is to, like, put this together. I think I just desperately need to go on and figure out who wrote this movie. So I can just go on and just, like, thank this person right freaking away. Oh, that figures. Okay. Alright. So Jason himself was the guy who wrote this movie and put it together, and could have probably figured that out because a lot of Jason's movies that he usually is in, he also is to be the writer on it, and so I probably should have figured that out. Because I've seen quite a bit of Jason's movies. Like, I'm kind of interested in seeing Jeff, who lives at home, and just kind of a number of other kind of eventual Jason films, in all honesty. So, spoilers. What is this movie about? So, Jason, who is nobody, Jason goes on and is to make his way through this house. He goes and chucks this glass, breaks it. He goes and takes a whiz. Goes on and tries to find a number of money and Rolex watches and whatever. So all of a sudden, the CEO and his wife are to come on home because they're on vacation, and so as the CEO and the wife are kind of going through this place, all of a sudden they bump into Jason, and they're like, "Oh my god!" So Jason quickly takes these people and are trying to tie them up, and it seems like nothing is really working. Uh, Jason is now going on and asking the CEO of like, hey, do you have any other extra money in here in this house? And the CEO is like, well, I think we have some extra cash in some like secret compartment, but I have to take a minute to go on and get it. The interesting thing about this movie is we both have the CEO and the wife who are acting very nice and polite to this man. It's like, hey, like I'll give you whatever you want. Like, take my phone. Like, because Jason asked for both these guys' phone as like the CEO is trying to like do something with his pockets, and so Jason's like, hey, bust out those phones. So we find out that the CEO has two phones. So they go on and get the phones out, and so we also had one point where both these characters were like running through this like orange field, and Jason, once the CEO and the wife are to separate, Jason goes after the CEO, grabs him, and then of course Jason is to tell this guy to go on and yell for his wife. So it's like, hey, I got him. So the wife comes back, and so they're kind of like right back to where they were. So Jason is to get enough money together to feel like he's gone on and made a substantial amount of money out of this caper. We have the CEO that's kind of desperately wanting to know Jason's like backstory of why he had come to like rob him. Was was this CEO a guy who was to have orchestrated some algorithm that made a number of people's jobs all irrelevant? Was Jason's character attached to that algorithm that all of a sudden made Jason's job pointless? But here's also the thing, and it's kind of the funny thing about this movie, because Jason technically calls himself nobody. It's actually kind of funny, because normally this channel that I'm reviewing from right here, originally this name, before I like changed it 30 different times to try to appeal to a number of people, and it just failed anyways, because anything would fail. The very first run of this thing, before I even started doing reviews on here, was to be called, I think it was to be called No One from Nowhere, or it was Nobody from Nowhere. And because I always considered myself, it's like, hey, like, I'm nobody just like anyone else. Like, really, even if you're a celebrity, if you're rich and famous, if you're Michael Jordan, we're all just like people at the end of it all. And that's how I always saw myself, as like, well, I'm just nobody from nowhere, or no one from nowhere. So, because I figured it would probably be an easier thing to at some point like skim it down and just be like N1, NW, and whatever, like abbreviate the crap out of the words or whatever. I don't know. So it would have to have been N1F, NW, but it is what it is. Anyways, so weird little thing about me. So Jason goes on, and after he used to get this payout, he's deciding, okay, well, I'll let you guys like I'll let you guys go into this sauna, and I'll just start stacking this large amount of lawn furniture, like patio furniture. He's just kind of stacking all these kind of goofy chairs and crap, like these ottomans and well, no, that's not an ottoman. Like it's just weird, goofy uh, lawn and garden furniture, patio furniture. Because I would know, because I've built so much of that garbage. God, like there's like wicker, like lawn and garden stuff that's like much more like straw looking, and that isn't that. It's like, it's more of the sturdy like metal kind that's actually decent. Will actually last a pretty good stretch of time. So because a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, yeah, I used to like put together all kinds of lawn furniture, and it was miserable. Anyways, I was miserable, not it was miserable. Anyways, so we go on into this film, and Jason drives off. All of a sudden, he used to see this camera out of the middle of nowhere attached to this tree, and then Jason goes back, and that's when the CEO and the wife are kind of running through this forest, and he has to chase after them and or into this kind of orange field, and calls them back. And so Jason is consistently asking both Jesse and Lily here, like, hey, like, where is this camera feed coming from? And Jesse's, the CEO, is like, I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. Like, you just see a random camera somewhere, and you're asking me about it. I don't have the answer. So Jason goes on, and he's like, well, like, now my price has gone up because more than likely I might get caught because of that camera. And, excuse me. So Jason goes on, and he is like, well, how much money can I really take from you people? How much money can I really take? So the wife, Lily, is the kind of factor here that, like, well, like, you really need some decent amount of money to live off of, don't you? And so she starts like figuring out all like the digits and figuring out all the numbers. And we have like Jesse, who's the CEO. It's like, wait a minute, like, where is all the math of this with our prenuptial agreement? And so Lily is going on and saying, it's like, well, will $3 million work for you? And Jason is just like, well, yeah, I think $3 million sounds about right. And the CEO just starts laughing. It's like, dude, there is no way that I can get you $3 million. There's too many red flags that would happen with $3 million. And also, like, you know how much $3 million weighs? How would I be able to get it to you? Like, it's like it would, like, I would have to go on and get like some armored truck to just get all this money to you. Cause yeah, like that's the thing I never understood about all those like ransom things. Like, I had just seen, God, what was it? Like Power Rangers Time Force. And one of the early episodes was that the evildoers wanted like $10 million. And so we conveniently have it where like the Power Ranger, the Red Ranger, and like it doesn't, I'm just randomly referencing whatever. He has this like tiny briefcase that is like the size of like barely my chest, and he like hands it over. I'm like, $10 million out of a case like that? No. Like, I've seen it where it's like, where like you would have like these big massive bags of money, obviously. Like, I had just seen the like ambulance where like they had like $8 million in this huge bag, and what, so yeah, like it, and that would seem like a rational sized thing for $8 million. Like 10 million, $10 million in a tiny briefcase doesn't make sense. So anyways, this so we just have it where like Jason is like, well, what is seriously the max amount that you can get out of a bank to hand over to me? Tell me now. CEO's like, well, like I can probably get you $500,000 without raising any red flags. So yeah, like I think I can do that because I think like Ozark, Jason Bateman like got like $8 million, and they're going on and asking him, it's like, are you okay? Like, are you in distress? And and Bateman is going on telling him, it's like, no, like this is my money, and I'm gonna go and like I'm probably gonna go and Scrooge McDuck and toss all this money onto a bed and just jump all over it and just and rub myself with it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, but that like you actually had to have the guy come into the bank and say like what he was doing there. So the CEO, of course, is to talk to his assistant April, and of course, Jesse's character is to just be ticked for the fact that April did not buy a number of flowers for his wife, and immediately his assistant brings it up. It's like, hey, what? How about those flowers? And the CEO's like, don't even talk about it. So the CEO goes on, and he's just like, okay, like, give me $500,000. If anything, like, I need money right away. So this assistant goes on, and is like, well, the soonest I can get this for you is like the next day. It's like the next afternoon. And this assistant doesn't even go on and dump $500,000 at this guy's doorstep. She just like she dumps it off to the side of the road, and then like I guess they naturally assume that the money is there, so they have to go and pick it up. But like this is taking seemingly forever to do that. So we now have to go on and have some kind of like small talk between our characters. And the more and more the CEO is talking to Jason, the more he just wants to figure things out. He just wants this guy's backstory, and Jason's like, I know what you're doing. Like you're wanting to try to like figure out who exactly I am, so like you can go on and just be like, oh, I know this guy's name. It's blah 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 because he worked in this division at this time. Figure that out, and so Jason is not giving in to that whole thing. So, but the CEO is also mentioning like, well, hey, like someone else would have figured out this algorithm anyways. Someone would have beaten me to the punch and created this thing. I was just the smart enough one to create it first. Like, why are you going after me? That this thing would have been an inevitable thing to happen regardless. Why are you going and coming after me? And it's just like, because you're rich. It doesn't matter. Like, this guy probably had nothing to do with whatever your thing was. He probably just saw you on Forbes, and he's like, oh yeah, I know that guy because I saw him at so and so place, so I'm going to follow him around, and like I know he's rich, so like I'm going to stalk him, find out where exactly he's to go for the weekend, and hold him hostage for ransom and get some sweet cash. So, we then go on and have them all watching Three Amigos because they have nothing better to do. And I'm just like, seriously, I'm watching people in a movie watch a movie because they have nothing to do. Uh, Both of them go on to sleep, and Lily can't sleep. And so she goes on and talks to Jason. And so both of them are kind of sharing, I'm assuming, a beer together. It doesn't really look like the label is out, so it could be a beer, couldn't be a beer, not quite sure. So, and we have the CEO that goes right to sleep, and Lily's like, how is it that even my husband, at gunpoint, can just easily fall asleep during a hostage situation? So, yeah, so the next day comes, all of a sudden we have the gardener. That, of course, is to make his way to this place, and Jason is like, hey, like, why is he here? Like, why didn't you tell me he would be here? And they're like, we didn't even know he was going to be here. So, since the gardener is to notice that these people are home, he keeps knocking on this door consistently. And so Jason is like, well, I guess go on and try to get rid of him. And so this gardener, for this day, I guess seeing this guy here, man, this gardener is just really chatty. And so the gardener is like, hey, like, since I don't normally get to see you guys here, as he's talking to the CEO, the gardener goes on and he's like, you know what, I really appreciate you guys being able to be here, yada, yada, yada. So while the gardener is doing his thing, eventually, uh, we have the gardener who wants to talk to these people again. So all three of these guys just come out there and is just seeing what the heck is going on, because technically Gardner had saw Jason anyways. So, excuse me. So the CEO just explains that Jason is one of their cousins, and I'm like, sure they are, sure they are. You know what would have honestly been a way more intriguing story is, because this isn't the way this exactly plays out. I would have actually liked it if we would have found out at the end of the story that Jason and the CEO's wife had been having an affair on the CEO for a while underneath his nose and he didn't know. And by the end of this movie, they possibly either run off together, we go on and have possibly Lily go on and either shoot her husband or to go on and do something where eventually or like say that she wants a divorce, and then both of them run off together. That's what I thought that this movie was going to be. Some kind of interesting, kind of like, oh my god, kind of big reveal kind of story. Or they could have done any number of things where we probably could have still had the way this ends, and then all of a sudden Lily would have gone on and done some digging through Jason's phone to go on and just kind of delete photos of them together. Like, oh my god, whoa! That would have been a crazy reveal, but at least that would have been like worth it to just be like, but man, that ending though. To finally know, to finally have this huge, massive spin of a thing, and it would have been a little thing too, but still, it would have been interesting. So, but what happens is this gardener is to go on and is to desperately want to build some tree here for the CEO and wife's children to see grow at some point. And so the CEO is telling this gardener, it's like, well, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. Like, it looks great. You orchestrated all this gardening. It looks amazing. I'm baffled by your skill and your motivation to blow money on gardening stuff. So the CEO is talking to Jason, or Jesse's talking to Jason and saying like, hey, look at that. A man that takes pride in his work. And like, look at you. Like, you don't take any pride in what you're doing. So all of a sudden, Jesse is supposed to sign on this piece of paper to give the gardener, and all of a sudden the gardener reads his paper, and Jason realizes that the gardener realizes that they're being robbed. And so the gardener starts running. Jason kind of calls him in, and so what happens is, like, everybody's just kind of stalemated, everybody's just kind of here. So at one point we have the gardener running off to try to scramble out of here, and he accidentally is to smash into this door so badly that he ends up stabbing himself with this glass. So nobody really does anything. The gardener just accidentally kills himself oddly. And so Jason is trying to help the gardener. He's like, "Hey, like what should we do? Like this guy's bleeding out of his neck," and there's like, "Well, there's nothing really to do." So, because this guy is just gonna bleed out, and they can't call the cops, they can't call an ambulance because they're being held hostage. So this guy bleeds out, and so after this, we kind of have the CEO that's kind of blaming Jason for the death of this gardener. I would. Uh, because there was no way for them to have been able to call anybody because no cells anyway, no cell phones. So Jason at this point is just so aggravated at the CEO, and Lily is telling Jason, it's like, well, hey, don't go on and do something you're going to regret. Like, if anything, that Gardner thing was an accident and has nothing to do with any of us. So, like, just go on and try to, like, just, like, keep your cool until you get your payout, and then, like, just, yeah. So, we have Jason's character who's just seething. Just seething. So, we then go on and have this payout of this gym bag just getting chucked. $500,000 just getting chucked in the road somewhere. Lily goes after it is to retrieve this thing. And so now we have yet another moment where both Jason and the CEO are talking to one another. And like the CEO is still going on and talking about his job and talking about Jason. And so like what happens is that Lily has a piece of glass that she is finally deciding to cut her ties with. And so while Jason is going and taking his gym bag and leaving here, Lily goes on and starts beating him to death with this one sculpture. And then Jesse, who's like, "Oh my god, you just killed that guy. Oh my god, untie me, honey. Untie me, babe. Like, we can go on and just renew our vows and, like, we can have, we could have a second chance." And so Lily goes on and decides that she's not going to give their love a second chance because she's going to unload bullets into Jesse and then clean out the gun and put this gun into the hands of Jason, and then she, I guess, is just to walk off into the sunset. So more than likely, Lily is going to inherit this massive amount of money, and really that's... Unless they go on and like, well, like, it doesn't really seem like Jason's hand is to have much of, like, gunpowder residue. I don't know, something skeptic about this. And we also have Lily, who has fingerprints on the handgun, technically on, like, the top part of it. Something sketchy here. So that's just how the movie ends. That's just how we fiddle off into the sunset. So with that said, I think we're going to fiddle off also. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.